So we'll have Jessica give us another recap.
Our housing director is going to go to the Democratic Club in Watson.
Oh,
Did you know that?
I didn't know
Emilio
that.
Ramirez, he's
Okay, we good to go?
oh, we're off.
Okay. All right, I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Air Pollution Control Board on, what is today? Tuesday, the 12th of November at 1:33 p.m. And can the clerk please call the roll?
Board Member Bennett. Board Member Blatz. Board Member Edmonds. Here. Board Member Huber. Board Member Long.
Here.
Board Member Parks. Board Member Ramirez.
Here.
Board Member Rollins.
Here.
Board Member Zaragoza.
Here.
Chair Pollak.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and continue down our agenda. I'm starting with item 3, the Pledge of Allegiance. And Dr. Tzopoulos, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. Turn towards the flag, and you place your hand to your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And item number 4 is minutes from our meeting held on Tuesday, September 10. Any questions or discussion on that?
None.
Okay.
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as published. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? It's unanimous. Item 5, agenda review. Anything else that we need to change or adjust on the published agenda?
There is no change to the agenda that is being proposed, Chair Pollack, but we have a couple of photos that we'd like to show you as part of the inaugural ceremony for an EV charging station down at Channel Islands that Supervisor Zaragoza did the honors for us. And here it is.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I'm hoping, we'll be able to have similar photos in your respective districts and communities that you represent. If we can go to the next one. And here is how the station looks like, and it's already charging its first vehicle.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I thank you for sharing that, and I want to thank Ali for being there and staff members that helped us. Go back to the first photo, and you can see most of the people that were there, and it was just great. We had Mark Sandoval, our harbor director, was there, and some of the staff members and some of the residents that were there, and this, my understanding, is the first one in the Oxnard area, and by the Reach there is the first charger that we've had placed there, but it was very popular, and I just want to thank your staff working with our staff in the county and working with the residents of the harbor, and they just absolutely loved it, And my understanding that you can go out there with a little credit card and right, Ali, and
Yes.
and go ahead and charge your car. But I just want to thank you so much. And besides that, me and my big mouth, we're the Gold Coast Transit, because I'm a member there for the transit district. And we're buying 10 new cars for Gold Coast Transit, 100% electric. And they're going to have chargers inside the yard, but that's only for the facility, only for Gold Coast. So the staff there says, how about maybe having something for the employees out in the parking lot? So I contact your staff, your capable staff again, Ali being your second in command person. And now we made contact to some degree with Gold Coast Transit to then provide at least one to start off with some of the employees that I understand have half, gas and half electric cars that need charging.
Sure, wonderful. I will be happy to work with them. And we got similar requests from Mr. Rollins and the city, Port Hueneme, that he represents. And we are looking forward to.
Yeah, we recently had a company that's like surveying all our different buildings to see how much we can go green and save energy. And we're looking to, like, at some of the various different areas, like to kind of promote green tourism, perhaps like having the EV chargers at the beach or some of the shopping centers and stuff like that as a way to kind of encourage the public to get involved. And so they've been working with your staff, which I appreciate.
And Mr. Rollins, I'm going to plug for Winnie because, Mayor's also a member of Gold Coast Transit and he agrees with us.
Yes, Mr. Berg is. Yes, he is.
Mr.
And I'm the alternate for that, so.
Oh, well, there you go. But again, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
All right, seeing no changes to the agenda, we'll go on to public comment. Do we have any speaker cards? No speaker cards? Okay. And we'll move on to board comments or any other board comments. Yes, Ms. Ramirez.
I just want to thank Dr. Soplas, I'm not saying it right, for his information that he gives in between meetings. I think it's very helpful. And we know that you're on the job, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Long.
I wanted to also appreciate all the efforts in regards to the Easy Fire and the Marie Fire. We've had a lot of air quality with masks and so forth and regulations and making sure that our community is safe. And I feel it's very important that our association here is integrated into our emergencies system so that people know about air quality and so forth. So even though the fire might not be in their area because of the winds and so forth, that does happen. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I noticed that we were tweeting on a daily basis what the air quality was. And I don't remember us doing that in the past. So
No, that started off with the last fire, Hill and Woolsey fire, and then also with the Thomas fire. We've had 3 years of crazy.
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on to our regular agenda. Item number 8 is approval of 14 grant funding requests totaling $1,119,772 for new air quality projects under the funding agricultural placement measures for emission reductions, also called the Farmer Program, and to direct the Air Pollution Control Officer to prepare a grant agreement for each approved air quality project utilizing the standard Carl Moyer Program grant agreement, modified to reference the Farmer Program funding, and also authorization for the APCO to sign the grant agreements on behalf of the Air Pollution Control District and make any necessary minor administrative changes to the grant agreements, and authorization for the auditor controller to process the necessary accounting transactions. Dr. Tzopoulos.
Thank you, Chair Pollack. So the Farmer Program is one of our 3 grant revenue streams that we utilize to modernize our existing fleet. And it was designed to help our agricultural community and essentially help them out to get rid of their older, more polluting tractors and agricultural equipment and replace them with less pollutant, newer ones. And one caveat in this whole thing is the program asks us to orient the funding towards disadvantaged communities and low-income communities. So we have wonderful proposals before us for 14 contracts, predominantly to replace tractors, and there are 4 proposals to replace 4 forklifts. All in all, they are going to reduce close to 12.1 tons of ozone precursors, predominantly NOx emission reductions, which we desperately need. It will also reduce almost a ton of diesel emissions, which, as you know, they are toxic, carcinogenic pollutants, and also another 64 metric tons of CO2 emissions, which is a greenhouse gas. So there are wonderful proposals before you, and with that, we recommend that you approve the funding of those projects, and you authorize me to draft the necessary contracts.
Okay. So any comments or questions from the board?
No motion approved.
Give a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it is unanimous with 6 affirmative votes. Item number 9 is approval of 21 grant funding requests totaling $2,387,232 for new air quality projects under the Carl Moyer Memorial Air Quality Standards Attainment Program, and to direct the APCO to prepare a grant agreement for each approved air quality project utilizing the standard Carl Moyer Program grant agreement, and authorization for APCO to sign the grant agreements on behalf of the Air Pollution Control District and make any necessary minor administrative changes to the grant agreements, and authorization for the auditor controller to process the necessary accounting transactions. Dr. Tesopoulos.
So just like the previous item, this is the second and perhaps largest revenue stream that out of the pass-through monies that we get from the state. This is the Carl Moyer program. It's we are in the 21st year of its implementation, extremely successful program. And we typically, just like the previous program, we get oversubscribed. And this year was no exception. So we have 21 grant proposals before us, and they cover anything from off-road equipment to marine vessels, to tractors, to forklifts, and even infrastructure projects. We have 2 electric charging infrastructure projects. One is with the Port of Hueneme, and the other one is with the Cal State Channel Islands. So they are terrific projects, and they're going to result in close to 18.5 tons of criteria pollutant emission reductions and 1.4 tons of diesel particulate reductions and 153 tons of carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas pollutant reduction. So terrific projects, and we recommend that you approve the funding of those, and you authorize me to draft the necessary contracts.
All right. Any questions or comments?
I move. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous with 6 affirmative votes.
Could I just add a comment that, again, I usually make the comment that it would really be great for the public to know more and more about these things. So want to really recommend, probably already have it in mind, a press release,
Yes.
tweets.
Press release and tweets, yes. And one thing that we had in mind was towards the tail end of the year to put a mini report together that summarizes all these accomplishments and share it with the press, upload it to our website, share it with you, and you can take it wherever you go.
Thank you.
Whenever you meet with your respective community. If you can indulge me with 2 seconds, Mr.
Certainly.
Chair. The heavy lifting behind these 2 agenda items was undertaken by Mr. Tyler Harris, who's sitting here in the front row. Tyler, would you mind standing up? He's doing a terrific job with our incentive program, and he's our newly anointed supervisor, engineering supervisor, handling these programs, and he's reporting to Mr. Gassem.
Congratulations, and thank you for pulling this together. Okay, we're on item number 10 on our agenda, which is approval and adoption of amendments to the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District's policy regarding the best available control technology, cost effectiveness procedures, and screening levels for costs to update the cost screening levels for reactive organic compounds and oxides of nitrogen, and find that the approval of the amendments are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Chair Pollack, members of the board, Ali Ghassemi, Manager of Rule Development and Planning and Engineering Division. The item that I have before you is request for authorization to approve and adopt the best available control technology screening level. This is a value that the staff uses to estimate if there is any economic impact on the facilities that they should comply with the requirements of the rules and even state law. The method that is being used by staff to consider this economic impact is to calculate the cost effectiveness of the specific control technology in terms of dollar per amount of emission being reduced. The current value, which was approved by your board in 1988, is about $18,000 per ton. Staff is proposing to increase that for best available control technology from $18,000 to $30,000 per ton to be consistent with the neighboring districts. And also, we request to increase that $18,000 using the CPI, directly CPI, when we do our BARC evaluation, which is the best available retrofit control technology. And that translate to about $39,000 when we are evaluating BARC. Now, I'm done with my presentation. I'm ready to take any question you may have.
Okay, any questions?
None, thank you.
Okay. And were you looking for board action on this, or is this just an information item?
Yes, we need you to authorize us to approve this. There is a board action.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve this item? Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it's unanimous. And I'd like to note for the record the arrival of Supervisor Parks. Item 11 is public hearing regarding the adoption of a resolution establishing fiscal year 2019-20 service rates and fees for the Air Pollution Control District effective November 12, 2019, which would be today.
Yes. So this is an item that we bring before your board every year. And the Health and Safety Code allows us to establish the appropriate fee rates through which we can recover our program implementation costs. And there are three essential fee rates that we establish. These are the service hourly rates, duplication fees, and miscellaneous fees. And the lion's share of revenues are being impacted by the service hourly rates. And these are essentially the rates that we charge when we process an application for an authority to construct or a permit to operate. And we essentially look at the engineer's hourly rate, their base salary. We add any benefits and any overheads. We do the same thing with air quality specialists and the same thing with air quality instrument technicians. So we are proposing that we adjust those rates by CPI. The law allows us to use two ceilings. One is the CPI, and the other one is up to 15%. We are recommending that we adjust everything by CPI. In one category, with respect to the air quality specialist and air quality instrument technicians, the actual increase was above CPI, but because we are limited by law not to exceed the CPI, we are recommending that we use the CPI as our ceiling. And with respect to the duplication fees, which are the fees that we charge when we get a public records request or when we get certain documents of ours get subpoenaed, and miscellaneous fees, which is the catch-all category, we are recommending that we maintain the same fee rate that we adopted last year. So with that, we are recommending that you approve the attached resolution, which spell out all those fee adjustments.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion would be in order.
I'll motion, but I would appreciate being frugal.
Absolutely.
Being transparent as to not inflating price fees when maybe you could, but we don't do that with our customers, and I really do appreciate that. So I will motion to approve.
And I was just reminded that this is a public hearing, so let me go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers on this item? Okay, was there anyone from the public wanting to speak? Doesn't look like it, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. And we have a motion. Do I have a second? A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Item 12, adoption of a resolution amending Article 4, premium pay of the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District's management, confidential, clerical, and other unrepresented employees resolution. Dr. Tizopoulos.
So you may recall, right before I arrived, our engineer manager had retired, and our engineer manager had retired. So our planning manager, planning and rules and incentives manager, was appointed as an acting manager to oversee that particular division. Unfortunately, we had no means to compensate this individual, for the extra work that he was doing. So the proposal before you today is to address that problem. In the management resolution, there's a paragraph that gives you, the board, the opportunity to raise an acting department head salary by up to 10%. The proposal before you does exactly the same thing, gives me the opportunity to raise the salary of an acting division head by up to 10%. Unfortunately, we can only do this moving forward and not necessarily prospectively. So I'm seeking that authorization so that we can compensate that individual.
Understood.
Who's doing a terrific job, by the way.
Great. Any questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. Why can it not be retroactive if we want it to be retroactive so that the interim will be compensated?
That's the feedback that we had gotten from our HR division.
Because I can, definitely support this going forward, but if we could, I would like to also make it a request that we direct you to talk with our HR to see if we can do it retroactively if the whole board supports it.
I'll be happy to. If there's a legal, avenue to accommodate that, and I don't know, maybe our district.
Our office did look into that, and we concluded that we could not retroactively pay the individual, and that's because the management resolution has to be amended before that occurs, and because those paychecks were already issued, there wasn't a way to apply that going backwards.
I'll let you
So we did look at it and concluded that the increase in pay could only be effective as of the board's action. There are other incentives that the district could offer to the employee, like additional vacation days and things like that, so supplemental benefits that could be explored.
I wonder how they work a retroactivity. We don't do it very often at the Board of Supervisors, but like if a union's like a week, and it's our fault that it's late, we'll do retroactive. So it seems like the system will allow it because we have done it. Is that your recollection?
We've done it through the bargaining process, when we work with the MOAs or MOUs, so I'm not sure what effect it has, but we have, we have done it in the past.
But if county council is stating that we can't do it.
And then,
Yeah, and I can provide, I unfortunately did not bring our full opinion with me today, but it has to do with the board amending the management resolution.
we would have to go that process first.
Which is what the board will do today. And so the effective date of the ability for the district to take that action is as of today. And there would be no way for that action to apply retroactively. I think it has less to do with the processing and more to do with the authority of the district to take that action is effective as of today.
So what about if we have a new resolution in the future that grants us that authority under certain circumstances, and then we can move forward on it?
To go backwards and increase someone's salary?
Under certain circumstances.
Like I said, our conclusion was that that couldn't be done, and I can provide.
Okay, I'm just wondering if it's like legally it can't be done, like there's a state law saying you're not allowed to ever do that, or if it's just within the confines of our bylaws and resolutions, we can't do it, but if we change those, we could. So anyway, if we can look a little bit closer at that to see if that's possible, and With that, I'll include that in the motion to support the recommendation.
Okay, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion and second. Any further discussion?
I just had one. How long would it ideally be retroactive to?
What I'm saying is that as a legal matter, it cannot, the board's action cannot be retroactive. And I can provide the board with a more thorough explanation of why that is.
That's probably a better
Right.
approach.
Mr. Owens, I think you were asking a hypothetical, right? You know, if we had the authority
When was a person assigned to
2
more
months.
responsibilities?
2 months ago, am I right?
So they
August?
can't retroact it for 2 months.
Almost 3 months.
So probably, maybe the motion might be to bring additional information if we can do it.
Sure.
Might be the best way of doing it.
Or the
Forward,
equivalent?
we have before us, but if we can, bring information back.
Legally, we
to
cannot do it, then, but I think that council's, opinion might be something that we might look at and bring us back, yes or no, or why, or so forth. Supervisor, I'm not sure if that would be,
Yeah, we'll incorporate that in the motion.
okay.
Possible, direct us how we can do it if it turns out that we can.
And
I just had one. Is there anything within the employment rules that they have exceptional service bonuses or anything like that that they have operating right now? I know in some cities and things, if somebody's done over and above,
commendable rating or something.
that they can get a bonus because they're doing something over and above. May not happen here, but.
Right, as mentioned, when we researched the issue, there were some incentives that could be applied, such as additional vacation days that the employee could cash out or utilize as vacation days. The salary itself was limited to what's already been adopted by HR and what's in the management resolution, which this employee falls under. So in terms of their classification, there wasn't an increase that we could apply. But with the amendment to the management resolution that your board is considering today, the executive officer of the district would be able to increase that salary up to 10%. So,
To make up for the difference.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I,
Motion and second.
Yes.
okay, can you clarify the motion again?
Oh,
Linda?
The motion is to approve staff recommendation, then come back with further clarification and if there's a way to do it. And give us the information as to if you can't, but we'd like to see the opinion.
For retroactive.
right.
How about, could friendly amendment add any recommendation about incentives? Maybe that needs to be a separate.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, I think the understanding is to be able to apply retroactively or the equivalent thereof, like you said, vacation days or.
Mr. Chair, can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Does this also take care of the compaction rate problems?
Not quite.
I know-
There is a parallel effort that the county's HR department is undertaking to do some comparative analysis with neighboring districts, and that work is not complete yet.
Yeah, because that's been a lot of problems with the compaction ratio, to
Yes.
kind of keep that ratio, separate, from the rest of the
Absolutely.
supervised employees.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Everybody clear on the motion? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, item 13 is another public hearing regarding adoption of proposed amendments to Rule 74.23, stationary gas turbines. Find that the proposed amendment, Rule 74.23, is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act and direct the Air Pollution Control Officer or his designee to file a CEQA notice of exemption pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15062. Ali.
Chair Pollak, members of the board, we are requesting your board to approve and adopt the amendment to Rule 74.23, which is related to gas turbines. What are the reasons that we have to make this amendment? There are two. Actually, the first one is comply with AB 617, which is a program that it is applicable to communities that they have a exposure burden to health, and This AB 617 requires expedited schedule for implementation of BARC, which is the best available retrofit control technology. And your board adopted the schedule on December 11, 2018, and full implementation of BARC will be by January 1st of 2014. The second reason is we also have to comply with California Health and Safety Code, Section 40919, which requires all feasible measure for areas designated serious non-attainment areas such as Ventura County, our county. Just to give you a brief history of the rule, the original rule was adopted in 1995. The basic requirement was based on the unit efficiency as size of the equipment. And in 2001, we have to go and amend that requirement because one of the turbines could not comply with requirement, but the second turbine in the same facility was the limit. We reduced the limit on the second turbines. There was no net increase, and we let the facility do the normal operation. What are our proposed requirements? The facilities are either they have to reduce their NOx and ammonia emissions when considering cost effectiveness, either by using the NOx limit of 2.5 and ammonia emission of 10 ppm, or if it is not cost effective for facility to do it, then we provide alternative means of reducing equivalent emission reduction at the site or within the community that the facility is located at. Who is actually being affected by this rule? It applies to any turbines greater than a recall 0.3 megawatts. And based on this requirement, there are 8 facilities that are being impacted, and there are about 11 turbines that they are subject to these requirements, and these are the list of the facilities. The total estimated reduction is about 117 tons per year, of which 24.5 tons we obtained due to the lower NOx limit. About 17.84 tons is due to the limit of operation. Some facility take the limit on the number of hours of operation, and they could get exemption, and that way we reduce the actual emission has been reduced by 17.84, and 75 tons per year is due to taking alternative compliance option. We did we workshop this amendment on July 25th, 2019, and based on the comment we received from the facilities, we revised our rule draft and incorporated those comments. No comments was received from CARB, but the staff was praised by the way they provide the option for facility to comply with the requirements. EPA Region 9 comments were all addressed in the rule, and we had the advisory committee on September 24, 2019, which unanimously recommended adoption. That's my presentation. I'll take any question you may have.
Any questions from the board?
No, but it's a public hearing. We have to open. Did you open it?
Yeah, I have not opened the public hearing yet, so let me go ahead and do that. I'll open the public hearing. Are there any speaker cards? Any member of the public here to speak on this item? It does not look like it, so I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up to the
I
board.
had just a couple of
Sure.
particular interest is on the new Indy plant.
Yes.
So with the approval of this, how would the new Indy plant
They are reducing their emission to 5 ppm of NOx and 10 ppm of
should it be
ammonia.
reduced?
Yes.
Now one of the concerns in our community is, and I'm not even sure if it comes from the gas turbine, but not only the air quality, but also the sound of them operating. And I don't know if the gas turbine is affected by the sound pollution, let's say.
Okay, the sound is coming from the flapper that they have for combustion equipment that they have. Each flapper is costing $60,000 if I'm not mistaken. And this is this information is provided by the facility. They have a program that they're going to fix it in the beginning of the year, and there is another flapper that has to be changed too that is going to happen a few months after.
So then the new flapper will make it quieter?
I think the flapper doesn't work properly, so when they really under the pressure, it makes noise.
I see. And they're going to be fixing that?
So in the next,
beginning of the January, this is what the plan was.
the noise should
Do you
go.
have better information?
No, yeah, I'll echo with what Mr. Gassini said. You know, within the first quarter of the year, I think one flapper may be being replaced within the next weeks, and the other one, I believe it's the first quarter of next year. And they're also taking steps to reduce the noise during the evenings with the trucks and the different alarms that they have. So you are going to see a market improvement in reducing the decibels down.
So there's a structured plan to reduce the noise and all that.
Yes.
And we have been working hard with our community on the noise and finding out the air quality and the smell and so forth. But it's important that we urge them to do it as quickly as possible, especially for good neighborly respect and guidelines, yes.
South Dock.
To be good neighbors, let's put it that way.
And we are working with both the new Indy facility as well as the wastewater treatment facility, which is also a source of odors and a lot closer, frankly, to the community. So they do have short-term as well as long-term plans to accomplish that. Yeah, we are working diligently with both.
I do have a comment. I wanted to thank you for the process you followed by including stakeholders. That's just so essential and providing some flexibility within it. So thank you.
Thank you. And I got to give kudos to Mr. Gassami and his team. The alternative compliance option that we are establishing through the adoption of this rule, it's a first for our agency. And frankly, it's a first for most other regulatory agencies. One good thing that I experienced here in Ventura is even when there are technological difficulties to hit a particular limit, facilities do come to the table and they want to do their fair share. And they are offering, to go through this alternative compliance option and put their money where their mouth is, and spend it, invest it in the community, and get equivalent emission reductions there. So it's a great proposal, and we'll be briefing you on how it gets implemented.
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it is unanimous. And I want to return quickly to item 7.
Before I leave, I would like to
yes.
actually also recognize the staff that worked very highly on this rule. Danny McCullen, he put a lot of time and effort, and actually the idea was coming from him.
Great. Thank you, Danny. It's impressive. And we're going to return just briefly to item 7 because Councilmember Edmonds had something that she wanted to say.
I forgot to say it at the beginning. I have a comment and a question. The question I have is with the fires and with the electricity being cut off for long periods of time, a lot of people are going out and buying generators. And I wondered what the pollution effect might be with a generator because it is not electric.
Yes.
And if you happen to know of some that are more efficient for anti-pollution than others.
Yeah, I was seeing pallets of these things at Costco.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't buy one because they were all
You couldn't
gone.
buy one because they were going like hotcakes
Yes.
at Home Depots and Lowe's and other outlets. And unfortunately, you're asking a very important, very good question. And unfortunately, the response is not as great because there are air quality implications with respect to the use of these engines. They are not as efficient as the energy or the power produced by the central power plants. Those are subject, to our most stringent standards. Now, if those engines, if you are buying them from Home Depot, from legitimate outlets, technically they are supposed to be complying with the state regulations, and the emissions implications are not great, but they're not as bad as if they were illegally imported engines. Unfortunately, what we have been experiencing is there is a wholesale importation of those engines from out of state, just to meet the demand. And nobody knows what quality of equipment are entering our state. The Air Resources Board is fully aware of the situation. while they don't have any solution for the short term for this year, they do plan to initiate a program for next year and the years to come if this PSPS program becomes the practice of the land. And hopefully we'll be able to minimize the damage that way, because at this juncture, there are emissions implications. And if they happen to be diesel emissions, you have diesel particulates that are being emitted right next to your family, where your family breathes, where our schools are. So it's not a good outcome, but unfortunately, it's the only one that is available to us right now.
So they're working on the rules for the future then?
Yes.
To monitor those, make sure to follow the protocol.
Well, and I understand that the generators that are purchased in California are completely different than the ones that are anywhere else.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people that are trying to get generators that will last a longer amount of time. However, it takes 3 to 4 weeks at least to get shipped here and modified because of all the California regulations. So
Yes, correct.
fortunate, we have those regulations, so the air quality that it's created is not as bad as some of the other locations.
That's
I
correct.
just want to make sure that that's noted.
That's absolutely correct. Our regulations are, even for those portable gensets, are a lot more stringent. So they are a lot more cleaner, the ones that are complying with the California regulations. Not as clean as the central power plants, but cleaner than whatever else is being sold in other parts of the country. But nevertheless, because we are talking about thousands of those, when you multiply, whatever emissions impact you have by thousands, it turns out to be a large number.
So then that's a great discussion of what is the pros and cons for PSPSs in general.
Yes.
So that will take 2 hours or more conversation. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
We'll be violating the.
Is that something, though, that we want as a future agenda item?
I'm not sure.
I would like a list of ones I could buy that would be the least.
That's a good point.
That's what I would like. And then I'll wait till it comes on the market.
If you are buying them from legitimate outlets like the Home Depots, Lowe's, they're obligated to sell you only
Good, thank you.
the ones that are certified according to the California certification specifications. So you're pretty safe in buying any of those.
Okay, thank you.
But if you have a fly-by-night operator, driving by, trying to sell your genset, try to stay away from it.
Thank you.
I was hearing about someone who was connecting to their home natural gas, like does their barbecue, so it's not diesel at least, right? So I guess there are different options.
There are different options. Obviously, the natural gas-powered ones are a lot better than diesels if you want to stay away from diesel, which is toxic.
And you're doing methane, I guess. Really. If we're done with this topic, I wonder if
have
I can.
one
pop
other
something
question.
too. Go for it.
Is it possible, we have solar panels. Is it possible to hook up our refrigerator and freezer to a solar panel?
I'm not the
Not that
expert of
that's your
that,
area of
but I
expertise.
don't think you can isolate, your home as an island
Okay.
unless you have certain battery power, and perhaps that may open, some new doors for you. But with the solar panels by themselves, you won't be able to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
And then I have a question for, I guess, our board and yourself. The County of Ventura, in our update of our general plan, which hasn't been adopted till 2020, the Board of Supervisors did approve recommendations to put in it, and in those recommendations were that the county would be responsible for planting 1,000 trees a year, and that we would make it encourage 2 million trees in the next 20 years, which is the lifetime of our new general plan. And so we have already begun the process, even though it hasn't been adopted. Last week, during the unveiling of the Healing Gardens for the Borderline, we gave out 1,000 little oak seedlings to people. It was wonderful. They loved them. We did on a Clean Air Day, different colleges went and did tree plantings. I've got a group out in Oak Park that are gathering acorns to do a restoration project, and I also know a large restoration proposal that's being put forward right now. So with that, it'd be nice to have, and our board also was talking about having a website where we can log these, it's a terrible word, isn't it? But anyway, can put it and monitor all these trees that people throughout the county are planting. So they can go on and say, hey, I've planted trees and these are the types of trees or whatever. And we had talked about the possibility of the air pollution control district being the ones that do that website. And I'm just wondering if our board's interested in that. I think it's neat because it could encourage people to go online and, my college did, this many trees, or my city's doing that many trees, and kind of bring a little competition in there, but also help us to keep track.
Absolutely. We would love to collaborate with the county. In fact, I got a phone call, it was almost a month and a half ago. I can't remember the individual's name, but I can find out. I probably jotted his name down. And basically what I offered them was to assist with that planning process, because not all the trees created equal. Believe it or not, even
Right.
trees
And how old
emit
a tree
pollutions.
is and all this.
And we basically were trying to recommend them to go with the native trees, drought-resistant trees, and we can offer a hierarchy of trees in terms of emission potential. And if we can focus on the ones that emit less rather than more,
Give
we're
advice.
going to end up winners. And they found the information very intriguing. So we are compiling that information. We are almost done. And we'll be more than happy to share it with them, and also placed on our website, so whoever else, whoever city or jurisdiction interested in tree planting, they'll find that information useful.
Okay, so you're seeing it more as a place of information. I'm seeing it as we need a kind of more interactive in terms of people being able to log the number of trees that they've planted. So
Oh, I see what you're saying.
want to take on that responsibility or not, it would be going on for a while.
Well, I think that's also being done. I know Moore Park participates in the Tree City USA program, and I think they're doing some counting there. So the information may already be there. Ms. Ramirez.
I'll just add here, since we're talking about trees, the city of Oxnard has a tree, a grant for planting fruit trees, which was another idea, and it was fantastically popular, and we've stopped accepting applications because it's been oversubscribed. But I received a lot of calls from people in other cities saying, can we get some, or how do I get my city to do it? So there's a lot of energy around this. We were initially going to offer citrus trees, but that went aside because of the citrus disease that's out there. And it is a peach, avocado, plum, apple, fig, or pomegranate, but it has to be planted in the front yard. So, the public knows that this tree purchased with grant funds is being cared for. And if there's excess fruit, there's food share comes and gleans. And I think while it's different than planting a pine tree or an oak tree, it does contribute to the health of people. So
It would be great to, if we could have one countywide site where we could all add
That
those
would be
trees.
fantastic,
I think
yes.
that would be pretty neat. An interesting thing, too, the Woolsey After Action report by the Los Angeles County was talking about the importance of planting so that you increase the soil moisture through the type of vegetation. And, trees definitely provide shade, and as well as reduce energy use. So there's so many different benefits, as well as providing food, right? But if we could get, the county can do it, but I had heard you had an intern. I was just thinking this might be a good place for Air Pollution Control District to step up. So that would just be something I'm asking our board, if that's something we're interested in doing, or it might be a more acceptable body instead of the county, which is its own government agency doing its thing. And we also have like a $500,000 tree mitigation fund that will help us to plant trees too. So there's a lot of opportunities out there, and I like the idea of a coordinated effort.
Okay. Yes.
In my past life, I was a horticulture major, and one of the things we worked with, one of the cities that I worked with, was the concept of an edible front yard gardens, because all too many gardens end up using natural resources when you just turf them in. And so the idea behind it was to make those front yards more edible and more productive. And so there was a big push to be able to provide funding for that. Another thing that's important in this program is for people who are well-meaning when they plant trees. A lot of times you need to purchase trees that are appropriate for the environment that you're within. Native, and also like the root system itself, because ultimately years back, like one of the more popular trees people would plant would be ficus and coral trees. And while they're very beautiful, at one point in time, they're not necessarily appropriate for an urban environment because they begin to dig up the concrete.
Sepulveda Boulevard.
Sepulveda Boulevard. And so it's important, like in this whole education process, to make sure that we pick trees that are appropriate for the environment. And maybe the idea is to push the edible garden.
And also there's some trees that are more, have more allergens than others, and some trees emit more into the air than in particulates. So there definitely, it will be beneficial to get a guide on what are good trees to plant, certainly, but the idea that we need to kick it up. You know, we've lost, 100,000 acres in the Santa Monica Mountains to the fires, and not to mention what happened with the Thomas Fire and all those. So we've lost a lot of trees already, as well as infestation because of climate change and bark beetles and all of that. So the idea of being able to, not only our urban forests, but also, our forest forests. So maybe that's something that we would give direction on, so that might be a future agenda item as to whether we want our district to be the one that logs the information that, so it'd be for the public as well as public agencies could go on and we can keep track.
Sure.
And as you're thinking about planting trees, our grandchildren go to school in Tübingen, Germany, and when I went to see their school, they plant fruit-bearing trees. And so every tree there is available for kids to pick an apricot or get an apple or get some peaches. It was amazing. And kids were up in those trees and enjoying themselves. It was amazing. So don't forget the school system.
I remember being a starving college student. I'm real happy about my universities having those fruit trees.
Okay, anything else?
So we have a standing committee?
We do have a standing committee scheduled at 3. I don't think we have a quorum for that. I think it's just you and me, Mr. Saragosa. So let's huddle with Dr. Tizopoulos and see how we can reschedule those items, because I don't think we can.
If we don't have a quorum, then I'm not sure. Maybe the attorney?
Yeah, we may need to consult with her.
So we'll adjourn this meeting and then go to the.
Yes, so I'll call this meeting adjourned and we'll huddle and decide what to do about the standing committee.
Okay.
Huddle away.
So we need